Hello, welcome to the Sacred Feminine. Today I want to talk about this video right here. Before we get started, I'd like to welcome you to the Sacred Feminine, where there's no gowns, no makeup, and no high heels required. Just real women living real lives, reclaiming their power after 60. And today we are diving into marriage and money, and a little mindset too. We're going to talk about a video that I found. Here we go.
My husband works a lot of overtime for his job, and we have really adjusted the way that we navigate him working long hours, because when he works long hours, everything essentially defaults to me. And what used to happen was my husband basically just said yes to overtime. Like, if overtime was presented to him and he had a choice, he would just say yes, because he assumed that meant more money, and obviously we would say yes to more money.
Yep, that is exactly how it has worked for me in my 45-year relationship. My husband always takes the overtime if he wants it. There's times when he doesn't, and he bases it on the fact that he wants more money. So yes, that is how it has worked out in my 45-year relationship.
But over the years, especially as we had more kids, I came to him one time and I said, hey, dude, sometimes it's a no. Sometimes you need to say no to the money because we don't need it at that point in time. And your presence is more valuable at home than that like incremental amount of income.
And I've often asked my husband not to do the overtime, not to be gone so much, that I don't need more. I don't need more money. Him being at home was more important. He disagreed.
Sometimes you need to say no and come home and participate in all the things that our family needs. And I say this as a person who has a full-time career myself. So every single time he would work late and tell me, that meant I had to drop everything of my plans for the evening to pick up the kids, do all the things on my own. And so we had this conversation, and for a little while, what would happen is every time he would get an overtime request, he would call me and say, can I take it? Should I take it? And he left the decision-making to me.
Yeah, I've not experienced that. That has not been my experience. I am not from this generation of women who have more power than I did in my generation.
And we did that for a little while. And then one day I came to him and I said, hey, okay, you have access to the exact same calendar that I have, right? Like, you have access to all the kids' activities. You have access to my work commitments. You know what's going on. I would love it if when you get offered overtime, you would look at the calendar and see what was going on and decide for yourself whether or not your time would be more valuable at home or more valuable at work. And if you're not sure and
Well, we have had that discussion a little bit in this marriage of late. What's on the calendar, all that kind of stuff. So I know what she's talking about.
seems weird, like, call me and we'll chat about it. But like, at the end of the day, if we have 2 dance lessons, a baseball practice, and I have a work meeting until 6 p.m., it's obviously going to be very difficult for me to do that on my own. And so your presence would be more valuable at home. And so now it's very much a conversation. He'll call me and say, hey, I got offered 8 hours of overtime. I checked the calendar. There's no sports tonight. Looks like your work is free. Is that cool? And I'll say, like, yeah, totally cool. Thanks for the heads up. Perfect. Easy. Whatever.
It sounds like they have a great relationship, but they're working things out. Again, this is a whole new generation of women. They are doing things differently than we did, and they're doing things in a way that's going to make them feel better about themselves further on down the line. Unlike us, who were from the 70s and 80s, who lived a whole different experience in life.
Other times he might call and I'll say, like, hey, I've got a deadline I have to hit. I have to get it done, and I'm going to need you to come home. And he says, great, cool, I'll come home. And it's a conversation. And whenever I tell people this, especially people who are married to men who are in a blue-collar line of work, they'll say, oh, that's so interesting because my husband would never think to ask me. It's just kind of...
Right. My generation, no, they don't have to ask the wife anything. In fact, to do that, they would then be pee-whipped, right? They just do whatever they want. That is what my generation has lived through, and kudos to the new generation of women.
Kind of like assume that he's going to work. But I like to remind people that my husband is unable to do his job without me. He's unable to work that overtime without me. Without me physically being here, taking care of everything else in his absence, he can't do his job. Or he couldn't do his job and also have the family that he has, right? Because if I disappeared tomorrow, who would be picking up the kids, right? Who would be taking them everywhere? He would have to figure that out. And so in order for him to say yes at work, it has to be a yes for me too. And we communicate this together. And people find this so, like, I guess, strange sometimes because they're
Yes, for the older generation, it is strange. This is not the way it was done when I was new in my marriage. It was not the way it was done.
like, oh, like, doesn't his job take priority? And in our home,
Yes, in my generation, the job took the priority, the money took the priority.
no, like his job doesn't take priority over my job. We both work very hard. We both earn an income. We are both.
And I was mostly a stay-at-home mom, and I had a lot of different jobs. I worked a lot of part-time jobs. I did have some full-time jobs where we had to tippy-toe around the different sets of hours and all that. But for the most part, he's been the sole breadwinner.
Parents to these children. We are both managing this house. And so everything we do is a conversation, is a give and a take. Sometimes his job is taking priority, sometimes mine is. But ultimately, neither of us can do our jobs and have this family without each other.
So smart. So smart. You women today, you don't know or understand what it was like for us in our generation to be a part of the old school, the woman stays at home and that makes her a good wife and a good mother, and the man goes to work and he comes home and has nothing else to do because he's the breadwinner. That's all he has to do, where she had to stay home and do everything, and usually without being appreciated. But also at the same time, my generation was also moving into this type of woman that you've become nowadays. We were the in-between generation of the old and the new and trying to figure it out and trying to understand the balance. I got with my man in 1980. In 1974, only 6 years prior to my hooking up with my guy, a woman couldn't even have their own checking account. Can you believe that? 6 years before I settled down with someone, I couldn't even have a checking account of my own. Times have changed a lot. It's crazy. I would love it if I could go back in time and do it over again and be able to do what she did, or is doing, I should say. To be able to say, hey, you can't just go after all this money all the time and leave me here to take care of 13 dogs or take care of all of these children and take care of everything that's going on all the time while you're gone 6-7 days a week working and then getting to go out and play after work because you deserve it. I would love to be able to know what that feels like, to not be at the bottom of the list. Can't go back though, can only go forward. Only thing is there's nothing left here that I'm stressing over. There's no more animals, there's no more 13 dogs to have to deal with. There's no children, there's no grandchildren. It's just me and him, and all of that stuff has dissolved for me. But he will never know. He will never understand what all those years of doing that by myself, what that did to me. Making money the priority in our life has caused me to pretty much hate money. And that could be why I'm not succeeding yet with all these little side hustles that I'm trying, is that I need to repair my relationship to money. I have put all of my pain, my feelings of abandonment, my feelings of overwhelm and burden, I have put that all on money, because money was the reason that he wasn't there to help. Money was the reason why I had to take on more than I could handle. I just put all my hatred and anger and frustration into money. And I think that once I repair that relationship that I have with money, it wasn't money's fault. But once I repair that relationship with money, I think that money will start flowing to me. I believe that.